Yeah, my intro is I'm managing partner of Ravinia Capital. We're a boutique investment bank focused mostly on restructuring sales. We do a lot of 363 sales, but we really kind of help the clients where they're at and provide the best solution. We consider ourselves mercenaries for the stakeholders. Why don't you talk about the deal that kind of brought you here and how you were able to prevail?
Yeah, we prevailed. Thank you. So we're going to swap some deal war stories. We actually have 3 deals in the hopper right now. The one I'll focus on is actually, so in my permit, I do a lot of bolt-on acquisitions, minority investments, but in the vein of portfolio optimization, which was meant to avoid any future 10, 20 years down the line distress situations. We prune our portfolio via divestitures. But the question for us is, are we the right holder of that business for the long run? Are we going to continue to invest in the transformation and have to compete even more aggressively with the likes of HBO moving into the market, Netflix having moved into the market?
Hello there, M&A Advisor community. This is Roger Aguinaldo, and welcome back to the M&A Advisor podcast. Since 1998, the M&A Advisor's mission is to recognize achievements, provide thought leadership, and connect professionals in mergers and acquisitions for the purpose of improving your deal-making craft and accelerating your deal flow. We are so glad you're joining us for this insightful and inspiring podcast conversation curated for mergers and acquisitions professionals. Whether you're an aspiring deal maker, a seasoned professional, or just curious about the world of mergers and acquisitions, you'll find something valuable and relevant in our podcast. Our goal is to bring you the best insights, stories, and tips from the experts who've been there and done that, so you can learn from their successes and mistakes and take your deal-making skills to the next level. But before we dive in today's episode, we have a small favor to ask you. If you enjoy listening to our podcast and find it useful, please consider following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and subscribing to our M&A Alerts newsletter. You can find the links in the description below. This will help us reach more people like you and grow our community of M&A professionals. It will also let us know that you appreciate our work and want us to keep producing more quality content for you. Plus, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll always be in the loop with the latest trends in the M&A world to improve and accelerate your deal making. So please follow us. You are the reason we do what we do, and we couldn't do it without you. And now for today's podcast.
Okay, so we have another great session. Topic on this session is media moguls and mergers from millions to billions. Our 2 lovely speakers here ready to go. We have Brandon Sokol. Brandon, to my left, is the global head of corporate development and M&A at News Corp, and he will be in conversation with this fine gentleman here, Tom Goldblatt. He is a managing partner at Ravinia Capital. Please welcome them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we thought we'd start with some brief introductions and then explain the kind of the deals that brought us here, and then have some general conversation about bankruptcy processes. But Brandon, if you want to start.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. I'm a bit of a fish out of water here because I'm not a distressed guy. I'm actually a growth M&A investor. We have bought some things out of distress, including something we're working on right now in the UK. But generally, my focus is on kind of strategic transformation, portfolio optimization, moving into adjacencies, add-on bolt-ons. So I work at News Corp. You met my colleague, Jody, earlier this morning. News Corp is a global media holding company. We have 3 subsidiaries, large subsidiaries in Australia. We have 1 in the UK, and then we have a number of operating businesses here in the US, including Dow Jones, which the Wall Street Journal is a part, and some other B2B businesses. We own HarperCollins, the book publishing business. We own Realtor.com. We own the New York Post, and a lot of other fun things. So, that's my intro.
Yeah, my intro is a managing partner of Ravinia Capital. We're a boutique investment bank focused mostly on restructuring sales. We do a lot of 363 sales, but we really kind of help the clients where they're at and provide the best solution. We consider ourselves mercenaries for the stakeholders. Why don't you talk about the deal that kind of brought you here and how you were able to prevail?
Yeah, we prevailed. Thank you. Yeah, so we're going to swap some deal war stories. We actually have 3 deals in the hopper right now. The one I'll focus on is actually, so in my permit, I do a lot of bolt-on acquisitions, minority investments, but in the vein of portfolio optimization, which was meant to avoid any future 10, 20 years down the line distress situations. We prune our portfolio via divestitures. We had a very good business in the Australian market called Foxtel. It's the largest pay TV provider in that market. It's sort of like if you were to mix Comcast and ESPN. It has all the sports rights. It's very popular, and they had gone through over the past decade or so a digital transformation. But the question for us is, are we the right holder of that business for the long run? Are we going to continue to invest in the transformation and have to compete even more aggressively with the likes of HBO moving into the market, Netflix having moved into the market? Australia is a tiny island after all, and there are a lot of global players. That said, all of our M&A is in part, while strategically led, and that's the most important thing, opportunistic at its core. And so we don't overpay for things. We negotiate things well, and we don't sell things in a state of duress. We only sell them when we feel like we're getting a very good deal and we have a good partner. And so with that in mind, we had received a couple of inbounds for this particular asset that I mentioned. By the way, the deal was signed and announced in December, 36 hours before Christmas. Remember that vividly. And it will close in the coming days. The partner was DAZN. DAZN, if you may know, is the sort of the Netflix of sports, multi-billions of revenue. Not so well known in the U.S. market, but a leader in Canada and a leader in Germany, many parts of Europe, in Japan. And really, we do believe, we did a lot of diligence on this business, and we do believe there is a massive opportunity, a massive amount of TAM to aggregate sports rights internationally, such that if you want to watch Indian cricket in Canada, you can, and if you want to watch US NFL in Germany, you can, and vice versa. And so we were really excited to have this conversation as a part of and one of the things we talked about is whenever we have M&A discussions, we are one of a handful of parties on either side. They're all very custom. They're all very curated conversations. There's no mass market. So when you talk about your deal, that'll be a difference.
Right.
But we essentially sold the business in a way that we got all of the third-party debt. Our shareholder loans got repaid. That's about $1 billion. And then we got $1 billion of equity. And the reason we took that equity versus cash is because we actually believe in the growth prospects of that asset in the long run. So that's my deal.
Yep. Well, quite contrast. We believe in a broad process. So we're an investment bank, and we're focused on restructuring sales as our specialty. And we were here last year for Allied Healthcare. This year we're here for Roti, a Mediterranean chain. And my colleagues Ken Hachikian and Nandini Gunnarsson, we all got called by this company Roti in August, where they were letting go their existing investment bank. They didn't feel that they had the ability to run an urgent process, and they needed the whole process to be done in under 60 days. Because they had made a deal with their landlords during COVID to basically rent consent, to push it off until end of November. So it was going to be on a tight timeline. We frankly like that. We feel that the bankruptcy process is just the outstanding way to sell a company and get the value. It puts things on hold. I'm speaking to the choir here, I know. But so we came in, and it was a challenge because this company, it's a beloved brand name for Mediterranean food in the Chicago area. It's established in D.C. and Minnesota. but it had grown much, and it really had to trim back. And they'd lost, because you heard me ask about the net tax loss forward, they'd lost over like 100 million, believe it or not, since their inception. And although they were working hard on a turnaround, the rent concessions out, they needed to be sold. So you had a brand that was kind of loved, a lot of Mediterranean sales per restaurant, but losing money, and had to be done soon. So we went about it, and as we do in distressed deals, is we try to get everything up front to make things easy for the buyers so we can have a broader process, but people can do their diligence quick. So we did all the diligence. We do something unique in distress in deals is we have like kind of a webcast in the middle of the process that's kind of post-SIM, pre-IOI deadline, and we broadcast the management to the buyer network that signed an NDA. And that's over time. We've done it for a while. It's becoming more and more important because people's attention spans have gotten tighter. They can't really focus on a sim, but they can get bought into a webcast and management. And we try to have the lower levels possible, kind of communicating it, which is one good thing. Greg had talked about communication in bankruptcies. We like bankruptcies because you can be much more open about things. But anyways, we went to get a stalking horse, and everything was going smooth. We picked one which was kind of had given the best deal, not the one that had done the most diligence, and that ended up being sort of a mistake because this company that was kind of looking like they were going to be the best bidder, they couldn't really qualify for their financials. So we lost a week there with very little time, and we had to keep proceeding to the auction because our rent concessions were. So I just wrote an article called "Going to the Auction Naked." So we were looking at, would we have a stalking horse and just sleepless nights, but that kind of impetus, and with the lower value, we were able to get 8 qualifying bids for the auction. And so it looked like we're going to have 2 national chains. So one of the things we believe in, and we're going to debate this out a little bit later, especially in a bankruptcy, we believe in a very broad process. And that is because there really is no value to a distress. The value is in the eyes of the beholder. So one buyer might want it because of the assets and the floor that creates. Another might like some of the IP and what that could do. Another might just emotionally want the company. They used to own it. So you don't know, but the key is to get them there and have at least a couple compete. Because I always say the value of a company ends up being like a little bit more than the second highest bidder. So you have to have it in. So we were going ahead to this auction, and Nandini, who's here, had done incredible extensive research, and we came up with over 2,500 qualified buyers. It sounds ridiculous, but actually number 1,500 on the list, which was Edible Arrangements, had shown an indication on PitchBook that they wanted to be involved in restaurant deals. So we went to them, and they said that they were interested in just the IP and maybe taking one of the restaurant. We worked out that we would reserve one and they could take the formula. So I wanted them in the auction because I was trying to create bid dynamic and have a little extra element of the, if we could get the IP, I could have my second highest bidder bid up, and it started to work that way. The judge accepted the IP bid. And then in the middle of the auction, about halfway through, I get a call from Edible, and they said, the CEO's been watching the auction, and he really wants to buy the whole thing now. So this is what you're going for, the animal spirits. So they ended up winning the auction and keeping the company alive, preserving the jobs, and it was sort of a fluke. But at the end of the day, it's now going to grow, and they're going to do national franchising. So that was the Roti deal.
And one thing that you didn't mention that I think you told me or that I read is that this is a deal that you won an award for. Maybe you can explain what made it so unique and kind of a
well. This is why we're here, and I think it's because we went out of the way to run this type of process and create a dynamic that kept the company going, and we're able to kind of institute the whole thing in under 60 days. But I want to talk to Brandon about when it gets to like the difference between a broad process and a focused process. And tell me why you like, if you're buying a company, you'd rather not have somebody like us there necessarily.
Well, I mean, I know, right. I guess my question, I'll put it back to you with a question and then I'll answer it, which is, If I knew I were one of 2,500 people on a spreadsheet getting a call,
Yeah.
why would I invest any energy with all the other deals out there to be done in that particular process? How do you convince them to even spend an hour on it?
Okay. Well, that's a good question, and I think the people don't. People can basically, in the end, see the value if they really want it, and so things can end up. I think Patrick had just said capital flows to the right sense. And if you're running the process right and putting the dynamics out there, it should end up with the buyer that values it the most. So absolutely, you're going to, like, the key buyer often doesn't want to be the stalking horse. They don't want to set the market for everybody else. But if we're out there and now we've got a price and it's going to go to your competitor, and you really want this company because it's a key to your growth and it's a good deal for you, you don't care that, like, you want to win that process. And so the bankruptcy process is beautiful in the sense that if you are the stalking horse, it allows you to have incentives there to entice you to come in. And then if you aren't, it allows you to compete, and it's pretty priceless because the whole thing is painless and over before you know it. So you can't get that deep. And that's, again, why we try to provide as much diligence in these situations as possible. So you're not going to have a lot of broken deal costs, and we're going to make it easy for you to get to the end.
I mean, I would say on the buy side, so I'm both on the buy side and the sell side. I'll tell you a sell side sort of war story about this particular topic. But on the buy side, oftentimes if I get the call from a bank, and one of the first questions I ask is, well, how many people did you call? How many people are in this process? And if they say, oh, actually we're calling both sponsors and strategics and this and that, then typically what I say is, okay, why don't you get through all that? And if things don't kind of work out the way you would hope, why don't you give me a call back? I think the reason we can do that in a lot of cases is we don't need to own anything. Mm-hmm. So we're happy to own a number of things if we can get them on opportunistic terms, but there's nothing out there we have to own. And so that makes it kind of easy. Yep. I mean, one example from the buy side, this was a call that we received during COVID, 2021 or 2022. And it was a forced sale out of the IHS Markit S&P Global merger. And it had to be done very quickly. And the regulators, either in the UK or here, or maybe both, one of the regulators said, no competitors, no competitive strategics because the industry is already too consolidated. And another regulator said, you know what, we want this to go to a permanent home, so it needs to go to strategic. So here we are. This is like music to my ears. So we've got a business that's an adjacency to one of our properties, has to be sold in a 6-week time frame. They can't call any private equity, and they can't call any competitive strategics. So we were like, so we did the deal. We bought it on very good terms. I'll give you one more war story and to illustrate my side of the point, and then you can rebut all you want. We were selling a business. It was an old school marketing services business, and I had received 5 calls from 5 different private equity firms that knew that this wasn't really a fit within our portfolio. Our chairman, Rupert, had assembled the business 30 years prior. He's a very clever M&A guy, and if I have 1% of his wisdom, then good for me. But what he did at the time, there were 2 competitors in this space. He literally bought both of them on the same day, unbeknownst to the other, and then combined them together. Because if he had bought one, then they would have driven the price up for the other. So he didn't want to overpay. So he combined them together. We'd owned this business for 30 years, and it was just on not a great trajectory. Still very profitable. We would have never let it end up in one of these sort of distress type situations, which is why we got ahead of it. But I had 5 inbound calls from private equity firms, and in each case I said, we don't want to sell it. You're going to have to make us a really good offer, or we're not going to entertain. And in 3 of the 5 cases, I got a letter the next day with a really big number on it, a multiple that was north of market for a business that should have been south of market, given its trajectory. Well, my CEO got really excited. We got excited, and we decided we were going to announce that we were doing a strategic review, and we're going to hire a bank, and every single one of these guys called me and they said, "Whoa, I thought we had something proprietary here." Going, "We're out. We don't want to waste your time. And oh, by the way, and then we got the bids for the first rounds, and they were all lower than what we had when they thought it was a bilateral.
Yeah, I'm not denying that private equity firms and other buyers, they don't like to see a robust competitive process. Of course, they would rather come in, but especially in a distressed situation, we're really fiduciary. We're obligated really to maximize for the stakeholders. In fact, we often will, as others will testify in court.
And that's a rule you have to follow.
We have to follow that, and so it also is that it's really our job. So we're aligning ourselves with the stakeholders, we say, because it really can rotate. Whether it's the senior lender, it can change in the middle. So we have to kind of look out for all of them. But we're looking to maximize that on behalf of the stakeholder. And we feel that even if a private equity firm is coming, well, we don't like it that it's a competitive process. Well, either they're probably not the right buyer and we don't want to waste time with them, or it's our job to really get under the hood and get to their point where they really should be buying this because their portfolio company is exactly what they need and it's a great fit. And they should compete in this auction. There's very little downside.
Makes sense.
Questions out there? Yeah, Mike. Rob.
You mentioned the Murdoch family. Yep. You mentioned the Murdoch family, and they got huge influence between Rupert Murdoch and the sons. And could you speak a little bit about if they bring a deal in, or their voice with the either professional advisors or corporate development staff? How do they input and just influence there?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, work very closely with both of them. I've been in, working sessions. Rupert will call me into the office. We'll talk through deals. Some deals he gets particularly involved with. It was rumored that we were looking at buying the Spectator magazine, I think it's the oldest magazine in the world. We didn't end up buying it. It got sold for a very large price that we were unwilling to pay, but he was very passionate about that. We own the Times of London, which is one of the oldest newspapers in the world. And so it depends on the asset, but ultimately they're very involved with everything because Rupert, until a year ago, was our chairman. Now he's chairman emeritus, and Lachlan is the chairman, and everything that is above a pretty minimal threshold, dollar-wise, goes to the board. And we pitch it to the board. They're like our investment committee. So in some sense, it is kind of like a family office.
Any other questions? Okay.
They went to get to lunch.
I guess so. Yeah, I would put a plug out for Oliver too. We use Smart Room as our data room, and I love it because you really, particularly, you can really see if people are bluffing and how much they're really spending time in the data room. So I'm a data room obsessive, and so put a plug out there for you, Oliver.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So the staff at the Ben here is going to be bringing in.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new from it. If you have any questions or comments for us or any of our guests, please feel free to leave them in the podcast platform of your choice or send us an email at editor@maadvisor.com. We would love to hear from you and get your feedback. And if you haven't done so already, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and subscribe to our M&A Alerts newsletter at the links in the description or on our website at www.maadvisor.com. This will help you stay updated on the latest M&A interviews and trends and support our podcast to grow and reach more listeners like you. This is Roger Aguinaldo, the creator and founder of the M&A Advisor. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our M&A Advisor community. Until next time, stay safe and happy dealing.